We're back with another budget with me using YNAB or You Need a Budget. And funny enough, last time I recorded at 3 a.m. and now I'm recording at almost 9 p.m. because my son decided he did not want to go to sleep tonight. As you can see, we're only 3 days into the month, but we have this big negative $4,000 here. Some things have changed, and I need to clarify. I always talk about getting a month ahead as if we haven't been before. We were a month ahead for well over a year, and with the exception of a couple purchases like our house and a car, we've been a month ahead for the majority of the last 5 years. So I keep talking about trying to get a month ahead, and I'm going to stop now because I don't think we're going to be for a while, and if it happens, it happens. So I'm done doing that. We're going to start off today by talking about this $50 here. We bought some ground beef for my parents to tide us over until our locker date, so we just took this $50 here from this King Cows and Transport, which is kind of like a fund that we have set up with my dad where he pays us, but we kind of just work for extra meat from his cattle business. So we're just going to leave that $50 up there. Then we have my husband's first paycheck here. He's going to do overtime as long as he can. Then we have this $510 here, which is my first paycheck from my bookkeeping. I'm pretty excited about that. It still feels weird to make money doing something that I'm actually really enjoying. It's stuff that comes easy to me, although I am kind of working through a bit of a mess with it. But it's stuff that comes easy to me, so it almost feels wrong to be paid for it, I guess. Then this $28.09 was interest we made from our checking account. We have a premium checking account with our bank, so if you make a certain amount of transactions during the month, you get a much higher interest rate. And then this bonus money here, my husband said to go ahead and move it all to car maintenance. He's basically done with this project truck, and so now we've got that money there. And bonus money we can just hide because we're not going to be getting any anymore. So income holding is done. Next, I better talk about this glaringly obvious overspending. So my husband's talked about for a while wanting to start a side business that he could maybe eventually grow into something more, or just have on the side for when he doesn't have overtime. He's very good at what he does, and I'm fully in support of him doing this. So basically we used $4,000 and moved it to a different checking account just to keep everything separate. And he already bought some equipment. And worst case scenario, we have this equipment that he already wanted to buy someday anyway, just for himself and for our house. So we're just going to keep it very, very simple, and I guess you can learn some things along the way about starting a side business. Did not expect that. I did expect to have my 1099 contract work. Did not expect my husband to go into a sole proprietor situation. So I'm actually also using YNAB to keep track of everything for that business venture, and I will probably make a video as more things happen with that. But for now, on this side of things, on the personal side, this is what our contributed capital looks like, and we did already need to use the to be reimbursed line because we hadn't set up that other checking account yet. So either way, we've got like $4,000 sitting here, and as we go through the budget, I'll talk more about how we might cover that. Next, we have blow money, which is just fine. As far as variable expenses, everything is going well. We haven't spent anything crazy. Obviously, the Amazon stuff came out, so that is where this overspending is from. Basically, Amazon prices can change, and sometimes when I figure in the taxes, they don't come out exactly. So I paid mortgage, and it looks like water garbage is going to be about $131. And I paid internet, so those are cleared out. Subscriptions, I didn't realize that Costco was coming out this month, but there's another reason to have all these subscriptions funded as you go instead of paying them when they come up, because that was $130 that I didn't even think about spending, but luckily we had it. So our car maintenance line is now full, and I'm just going to leave that $52.63 there. And then baby number 2, I'm trying to transfer this amount from our checking account to the HSA, and it's not being very nice to me about it, so I'll have to come back and do that at some point. Our investments came out. So the last thing we're going to do here in April, since everything else is funded, we are going to move this just under $1,500 to our contributed capital. We decided that we're comfortable having a 3-month emergency fund, and honestly, what's left in here is more like a 4 or 5 month emergency fund, because if my husband were to lose his job, we would halt retirement and all of this like long-term savings and stuff. So that's where a little bit of that money for that contributed capital is coming from. Before we move on with assigning this money, I'd like to go over some of our finalized March spending. As with most months, our highest expense was our mortgage, although like I've mentioned before, it's still just under 20% of our income. Gas was the next highest. We did have some overspending there, but we've adjusted now to go back up to $600 a month. Next was retirement, my husband's Roth, and then obviously groceries. Nothing else major for the rest of the month. And let's see, if we look at groups, so home, which is kind of our 4 walls situation, that is a lot less than I thought it was versus what our income is. That makes me feel really good. And then variable expenses, so that includes gas and groceries, so that explains why that takes up a pretty high percentage of our expenses. That's also pretty cool. I didn't realize that our investments are at 15%, and that doesn't include the retirement that my husband also contributes from his work. So our net worth is doing really well also, and that's the thing about this business. We don't plan on going into debt for it. Obviously, in the future, we could make upgrades, but we're going to work with what we have. If things go well, then we can upgrade things down the road. But for right now, we have no intention to have any debt still other than our mortgage, and that includes with the business. So that's pretty cool also that our net income was just under $3,000. It's hard to see that when everything's budgeted out, but it's really cool to see this final number here, and that makes me feel a lot better about taking this little business venture risk and cutting our emergency fund a little bit, especially now that I am bringing in a little bit of income again. Basically, if I flip ahead, it's not going to let me assign any of this money because we're negative here, and I think the best thing to do is just going to be to apply this paycheck here, and then we'll see what happens with next paycheck going into May. But that would make me feel better anyway to not have this negative balance here. So I'm going to add this $21.56.50, and we just have $400 left to cover. I'm really hoping that our beef situation ends up being enough that we can cover this, and from what I saw from last year, we should be okay. Yeah, last year we spent just over $2,300, and it's going to be a little more. We have a few more pounds coming our way because we're actually getting an extra quarter, since apparently our whole was a little smaller than it was last year, so we're getting a quarter of basically ground beef. Then we still might do pork this summer, but we're just going to revisit that next month, and I'll still probably just put the goal as $3,000. But I think just to not have a negative number, I'm going to go ahead and move money from this line, and then we can just cover it with income over the next couple of weeks once I find out what the exact amount is. So here we are back up again at the contributed capital, and we are going to cover this with our meat line. And we now have a zero-based budget with no negatives, no money owed, not even to ourselves. I can only foresee that we are going to contribute some more money to this, but for right now, we basically have everything we need for him to get started with what he's doing. And I figure he should probably do a couple jobs just to see if he even likes it before we put too much more money into this. I feel good about it. I think he feels good about it. And it's just nice to have options, be able to do things for yourself. I figure why be this sound with money and organized with it and not do something, especially at this point in our lives. So obviously, besides having more babies, this is kind of the next little thing we're working on. So thank you for joining me, and oh my god, was I not recording that whole time?